Welcome to another episode of the weekly business roundup, a primetime business show with superb content. My name is Wadulo Mark-Arnold, your host, and straight to the highlights. Data privacy and protection takes center stage at the 2024 Privacy Day conference. We unearth Uganda's oil and gas journey from discovery to production. Tanzania walks the talk in its commitment to grow business with Uganda. And on the international scene, tech giants Meta, TikTok and X grilled by the US Senate for harming children. For all these and more, stay tuned. It's time for business. The 2024 Data Privacy Day conference highlighted the need for citizens to be aware of all the data sources they hold, be it digital or physical, and the laws that encompass data protection in order to inculcate a safe and moral information space. Under the theme, Stop, Think, Own Your Privacy, this year's Data Privacy Day shed light on the legal position various stakeholders have when private data is breached.
The state, for security purposes, may decide to eavesdrop or even tap into the data of citizens. Now, Associate Professor Ronald Kakungulu Mayambala, in his paper, Phone Tapping and the Right to Privacy, a comparison of the right to privacy and communications in Uganda and Canada, lists a series of alleged phone tapping incidents involving especially members of the opposition, which were reported in the press. One of them, I think, was recently confirmed, included a member of parliament, the Honorable Cecilia Oga, may her soul rest in peace, who had her telephone conversation with the rebel leader of the Lord's Resistance Army tapped.
Article 27 of the Ugandan Constitution, titled Right to Privacy of Person, Home and Other Property, safeguards individuals from unlawful searches, entries and interference with their personal space and property. It explicitly prohibits unauthorized searches or entries into a person's home or property and ensures the protection of privacy in matters such as correspondence and communication.
By prioritizing the data protection needs of the blind and visually impaired, we aim to create an environment where every Ugandan, regardless of their abilities, can take charge of their privacy and understand and confidently assert their privacy rights.
As Uganda's public and private sectors increasingly adopt technology for efficiency, risks of data breach are likely to occur if the available laws are not strictly implemented.
What is very, very important to me, I want to look at data from a perspective of how we can benefit from it. All these companies that we are admiring, all the big tech, all the billionaires, they're exploiting our data and they are getting money from it. So me, who is processing a budget of 52 trillion, when we have 250 unfunded priorities at 250 trillion in the form of unfunded priorities. For the Data Protection Office, Honorable Minister, I'm trying to see, beyond protecting data, how can we benefit from this data?
I am a medical practitioner. For us, we learn this in the medical profession, that when you interact with the patient discloses a lot of information about himself.
This year's commemoration at Mestil Hotel, Kampala, was organized by the NITA-U Personal Data Office of Uganda in partnership with the ICT Ministry and the UN Global Pulse, an initiative of the United Nations that focuses on harnessing the power of big data and analytics for sustainable development. Wadulo Mark-Arnold for UBC Business. Government is to start issuing warrants of payments considering the cash in stock. The Minister of State for Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Henry Musasizi, says that this initiative will address the challenges of unspent balances. Let's have a look.
For the boats The Parliamentary Committee on Finance, Planning and Economic Development, led by Chairperson Kankunda Amos, presented to Parliament a report on the unspent balances and the position of the Uganda Consolidated Fund. The committee reveals, among others, a challenge of delayed implementation of projects resulting from delayed procurement and releases by government.
On the 1st of July 2022, warrants to various local government votes equivalent to 734.8 billion had not been spent. Of these unspent warrants, 49% were wage.
According to the report, government is a major contributor of unspent balances returned to the Consolidated Fund due to the weaknesses in timely releases and warrants of payments which are issued at a time when there is no money to be spent.
Unspent warrants have succeeded unspent balances, as was the case before the DSA. Since warrants are not equal to cash, but merely spending limits, this House should support the execution in tax policy measures that can enhance revenue collection in order for warrants to be cashed out because, of course, there will be availability of cash.
Here, I'm going to use ourselves here, that finance, they even issue press statements, finance has released 49 trillion for the quarter. What actually they are releasing is air. 4.9 trillion. What they are releasing is air. So as a result, the Auditor General gives the authority and then the minister a warrant to spend. When the actual spending begins, there is no money to spend.
The MPs decried the government's action of hiding behind the mandatory 3% budget expenditure to fund projects which have been rejected by Parliament, but jumping the priority programs.
We have items we reject in the budget which were foreseen, and they are returned under 3%. That's number one. Number two, when you are coming, what you seek here, you come through a supplementary, whether it is prior approval or retrospective approval.
Accordingly, the MPs tasked the Ministry of Finance to revise the budgetary process, which is based on assumptions. The MPs further proposed various arrangements which the government can utilize to address the challenges.
These funds are supposed to have been revoted. What finance did was to bring that revoting after 10 months. Therefore, by 30th June, that balance had not been spent. In other words, he was saying, Minister of Finance, you should have brought this money for revoting immediately after closure of the other financial year.
There are two things that happened when the financial year is ending. One is that there are payments in transit, which by the end of June would not have been received. That particular payment is settled within the month of July. But also there are warrants that would have not been acted upon, for which those projects are very essential.
The Minister of State for Finance, in charge of general duties, Henry Musasizi, noted that the issuance of warrants of payments will be considered after understanding the available cash.
Prevent arrears arising from poor planning, because the commitment control system requires accounting officers to commit government when there is a work plan. It should be changed now to say an accounting officer should not commit government when there is no money. That one can cure some of the arrears.
Daniel Mugoya, Gloria Gutabinji, UBC News.
Created by an act of this House, by Parliament.
Early in the 1920s, E.J. Wayland revealed oil seepages in the Albertine Graben, laying the foundation for Uganda's current journey into petroleum. We unearth the untold story of Uganda's oil-rich past in the following BRU feature. In 1925, government geologist E.J. Wayland documented petroleum potential in the publication Petroleum in Uganda.
What sparked the British to look for the oil was a seepage.
The report documented existence of oil seepages along the shores of Lake Albert in both Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
So these efforts date back to pre-1980, where oil exploration was undertaken intermittently.
The British, between 1920 and 1956, that is almost 40 years, they looked for this oil, but they missed it. They couldn't get it.
Serious exploration works began again in the early 1980s with the first Petroleum Exploration and Production Act enacted.
When we came into government in 1986, some Shell BP people came. A few days after we were in the government, and I said, Shell BP, I have nobody on my side who knows anything about oil, so please go away. Let me first prepare myself. I cannot sign an agreement with you because I have nobody on my side who knows anything about oil.
His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni issued policy direction for the sector on capacity building, data acquisition and promotion, and monitoring of compliance of licensed companies. In 1990, a cooperation agreement between Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo for joint exploration and development of common fields was signed. This saw the first production sharing agreement between Petrofina Exploration, Uganda, and government signed over the entire Albertine Graben. Later, in December 2005, the Mputa 1 well was drilled, striking oil on 6th January the following year. This was declared the first commercial oil discovery in Uganda. It wasn't long till major investors like Tullow Oil, Total and Sinnock commenced exploration along Lake Albert. Tullow Oil operated in Blocks 1 and 2, Total operated in Blocks 1 and Block 1A, Sinnock operated in Block 3 and the Kingfisher site.
So when we do the location of the oil pad, we need to consider water factors and then we make a choice. Normally, generally speaking, is the economic beneficial. So it's cheaper, we can produce more oil. This is the location we choose.
In our upcoming episode, we delve into the critical juncture where Uganda faced the imperative to safeguard its oil resources through stringent policies. The need for robust regulatory frameworks becomes evident to protect the environment and the local communities and to ensure that the nation maximizes the socio-economic benefits of its oil wealth. Wadulo Mark Arnold, UBC Business. Tanzania wants to grow its business with Uganda to the past levels where Dar es Salaam port and the Central Corridor was Uganda's import and export route of choice. Infrastructure development and aggressive marketing is key in this mission, as Sigoa reports.
Trade between Uganda and Tanzania has been steadily growing over the years. The two countries mainly trade in agricultural and manufactured goods. Despite the steady growth, business between the two countries through the much improved and efficient multimodal Central Corridor route is still low.
The statistics of the cargo passing through the Tanzania ports are only 2%, which is a very small amount of cargo is passing through our ports. looking back of our long history between Tanzania and Uganda, and those cargo which are passing through the ports in Tanzania are only the government cargos. Those business cargos, they don't pass through the Tanzania ports. So we we have arranged this stakeholders meeting so that we can see which challenge you are facing and what improvement we have made.
Shippers, traders, government officials from both countries have discussed various issues aimed at revamping Central Corridor, which in the past was Uganda's import and export route of choice. According to the Tanzania Ports Authority, Government of Tanzania is undertaking several initiatives to facilitate seamless trade.
We have improved the Dar es Salaam port, but we will improve more the Dar es Salaam port because this is our major port. We are now doing feasibility study for the construction of new container berth. We are planning to construct about 4 berths, berth 12 and 215.
As Tanzania works on its infrastructure, which includes the construction of the capital-intensive standard gauge railway from the Indian Ocean port of Dar es Salaam to the Lake Victoria port of Mwanza, Uganda is advised to follow suit.
We are very grateful to the United Republic of Tanzania for the vast investment you have done in infrastructure, particularly the development of the Mwanza port. On our side, we should also really work on Portobello and the Ginger piers so that we don't create a bottleneck.
Relevant authorities are urged to ensure smooth, streamlined and harmonized systems and processes as a way of facilitating seamless trade.
I really thank TPA for organizing this stakeholders meeting, which is a really good avenue for us to meet different kind of stakeholders and exchange experiences in terms of operations as well as in terms of customer expectations. And you have heard some of the very fruitful discussions in the meeting room with our various colleagues, stakeholders that are actually moving their goods along the Central Corridor. There are some of the issues, challenges that I've raised, and it's very important we as Central Corridor Secretariat, we take them forward to make sure that we iron all of them out to make sure that we have a smooth movement of goods and services from the port of Dar es Salaam to here in Kampala, Uganda.
Besides the workshop, the Uganda and Tanzania trade, transport and logistics players had a site visit of the Uganda Railway Corporation's non-functional goods shed.
In these partnerships, like the Central Corridor here wants to see how best we can utilize it, especially for container cargo. So partnerships are possible, not only with Central Corridor, even with other key players in this transport business. Yeah, but the key to us is the plan to have a linkage between standard gauge and meter gauge rail, what we call the multimodal hub. But in the short term, we are looking at ways of how to utilize the bonded warehouse and the container space so that we promote trade on the Central Corridor.
A lot of work has to be done, like rehabilitating this facility, similar to what we saw at Ginger and Port Bell, to enable them to become capable and able to handle the Central Corridor volume. Because if I look the other side of the country, what we are doing in Tanzania, as far as Central Corridor is concerned, they still lacks some of the important facilities that are to be developed in Uganda so that we could match and create a seamless delivery of Ugandan shipments.
Sigoa for the Business Roundup.
TikTok, Snap, X and Meta CEOs were grilled at a tense US Senate hearing on social media and kids. And in the middle of the session, the Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg stood, turned around and faced the affected families and apologized for the sufferings caused. We have more from DW.
characterize
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week on Instagram. You knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator, this is why we're building all
Who
these
did you
different
fire?
tools. Senator, I don't think that's...
Who did you fire?
I'm not going to answer that.
Because you didn't fire anybody, right? You didn't take any significant
I don't
action.
think it's appropriate to talk about like
It's not
individual
appropriate.
HR decisions and parents.
So you
that
didn't
help
take
work with
any
them.
action. You didn't
That's
take
not
any
true,
action.
Senator.
You didn't fire anybody. You haven't
That's not true.
compensated a
That's
single
not-
victim.
that's
Let
not
me
what I
ask you
said.
this. Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry for everything that you all have terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invested so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
This is not something that is new, and therefore you can see, even feel this palpable disappointment in the Senate hearing room during this hearing. We just had a short abstract there where he faced the families of the victims and apologized only. But that disappointment is not only by the members of the family of victims of online exploitation, but also from senators across the aisle. They accused Zuckerberg of having, and I quote, a product that is killing people. And this issue is not new. And the fact, and that's also what senators are saying, that no new bills on child safety have been passed is due to the power that the social media companies still have. Companies that the senator not only accused of not doing enough, but also of actively blocking steps to hold them accountable. And that's the moment that we just heard there, when after turning to the audience and apologizing to them, he then was asked if he would also face them and face these allegations directly, if companies should if he should be able to be sued, not just his company, but also he should be sued personally. He dodged this question, and he also dodged a suggestion by a senator to set up a victims compensations fund.
When you encroach on walkways, you put pedestrians at risk. You substitute walking and substitute it to vending, roadside vending. When you encroach on the road shoulders, where cyclists would be free to cycle, you are putting the cyclists at a high risk, because you reduce the motorable road. And once you reduce the motorable road and mix the traffic flow and mix the traffic components, then the road safety is compromised, and very much compromised.
In our Sounds of Business, we showcase the production of footwear and steel fabrication at MMP Industrial Park, Buyikwe District. As technology evolves, it seems necessary that the younger generation should embrace it earlier than we thought. However, what precautions have we set in place to protect them from abuse and ensure that they use the various platforms for knowledge access? Put that in mind as we wrap up this episode. My name is Wadulo Mark Arnold, and thank you very much for tuning in. Catch us on the next episode, same time, same place. From the team, we must say good night.
Did you know that our #1 value as a nation is to respect and protect the environment? With the current population increase of Uganda and industrialization, this has increased pressure on the natural resources, resulting into environmental degradation and global warming. Developing countries like Uganda could face 80% of the global climate change effects by the year 2030 if no action is taken. Join us here on UBC TV, Inspiring Uganda, on our Eco Plus program, where we bring you an in-depth analysis of issues that are disastrous to our environment, every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. only on your loved station, the National Broadcaster.